The final sort we're going to trace is Radix Sort, and Radix Sort works based on place values within a value. So it works for numbers and it works for strings. Doesn't work so well for other kinds of data, but it works very well for those kinds of data. So we're going to trace through an example with numbers. The very first and key step with Radix Sort is that you need to pad any numbers that aren't the same length as other numbers, and that would be true for words as well. So all of your values have to be the same length. They have to have the same number of places. So for a number, it has to have the same number of digits, and for a string, it has to have the same number of characters. So you need to pad with a value that doesn't change the value. So for a number, that means padding with a leading 0. So here we have 2- and 3-digit numbers. We need to make them all 3-digit numbers. So we need to take all of our 2-digit numbers and add a 0 at the beginning, so a leading 0. Note that that doesn't change our value, so 072 is no different than the value 72, but it just makes it so that all of our values have the same number of digits. That's the very first step. What we do next is we proceed through our array, left to right, sorting on the ones value. So we start out sorting on the ones value, we move on to sorting by the tens value, and then we end up sorting by the hundreds value, and we do the sort by placing each value into buckets. So we're going to start by categorizing based on the ones place and putting all of our numbers into buckets based on that place, then reordering our array based on those buckets, and then repeating that process with the 10. So let's go ahead and get started. So we start by categorizing based on the ones value. So this is going to go in the 1 bucket. This is going to go in the 4 bucket. This is going to go in the 1 bucket after the value that's already there now. So we maintain the current order that's in our array in our buckets. This goes in the 2 bucket, the 3 bucket, my buckets are a little overlapping, the 6 bucket, 7 bucket, another one for the 1 bucket, the 1 bucket, 0, 9, 2, and 4. So this is what it looks like after our first pass through. We've got everything in buckets based on the values in the ones position. And then what we do is we just pull everything out of the buckets in the order that it appears. So the first one from the 0 bucket, the first one from the 1 bucket, the second one from the 1 bucket, and so on, and put everything back into the array. Okay, so that's step 1. Now we're basically going to go through and do that whole process again, only instead of bucketing or putting into buckets based on the ones value, we're going to use the tens value. So this number is going to go into the 3 bucket, this into the 9 bucket, this one into the 8 bucket, this one into the 6 bucket, the 0 bucket, the 7 bucket, the 2 bucket, 8 bucket. Again, we maintain the order. Okay, so this one goes at the 2nd position in the 8 bucket, the 5 bucket, the 9, put in with the 6s, in with the 9s, and in with the 4s. So now we have everything in buckets based on the tens place. And now we take everything out of the buckets, put it back into the array, again maintaining the order. So that empty the 0 bucket, empty the 2 bucket, empty the 3 bucket, we empty the 4 bucket, 5, we empty the 6, but in order. So 361 comes out first, 566 comes out second. Same thing for the 8 bucket. They come out in the order that they're currently in the buckets. We maintain that order. That's a really key part of the Radix sort. Okay, now we have our final pass. We go through based on the hundreds place. So this goes in the 2 bucket. This one goes in the 5 bucket. The 4, 7, 1, 3, 5, 0, 3. Again, maintaining that order. So this is going to be 2nd in the 3 bucket. 2nd in the 4 bucket, 2nd in the 2 bucket, 1 bucket, and the 0. And now we do one last emptying, again maintaining that order. So the first one comes out of the 0 bucket, then the second one comes out of the 0 bucket. First one comes out of the 1 bucket, then the second comes out of the 1 bucket, and so on. And you'll notice that this last pass through is putting all of my values into sorted order. I always feel like the Radix sort is kind of like magic. I don't know. This has always been my favorite sort. And there we have it, the end of the Radix sort. Everything is in numeric order. We could go ahead and remove those padded leading zeros, have our original values, and we're all set. So that's the Radix sort. Again, it'll work for numbers or for strings. And the most important part is that first preliminary step where we add the padded values so that everything is the same length. And then we just go through with the least significant value first, so the 1's digit, then the 10's digit, then the 100's digit. And the other key part is maintaining that order. So when you go through from the array into the buckets, you keep the order. And when you go from the buckets back into the array, you keep that order.